Welcome, everyone, to the Information's TITV. My name is Akash Pasricha. It is Monday, January 26th. I am coming to you from our San Francisco bureau for the next few days. I am very excited to be here. Today on the show, we are covering OpenAI's push to take enterprise customers away from Anthropic. The Information has exclusive reporting about Sam Altman's pitch to executives at big corporations that his company can become a one-stop shop for everything AI. We also have some new inside reporting about OpenAI's ads push. Our e-commerce reporter has the scoop on its new premium ads pricing strategy. I'll then sit down with the CEO of AI video company Synthesia. The company announced it closed a $200 million Series E at a $4 billion valuation. And we will wrap the show with some analysis on the Nvidia CoreWeave investment this morning and a conversation with our cloud reporter who just came back from the Davos of the data center sector in Hawaii. She is bringing back some great insights from the event. It's a great show, so let's get right on into things. OpenAI is revving up its enterprise sales team as it tries to explain to customers that it is more than just a chatbot business. The Information reported exclusively that the company is trying to take customers away from Anthropic, which has seen some of the most success in the sector with respect to selling AI to enterprises. Joining me now is Kevin McLaughlin, one of the reporters behind that story. Kevin, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So this story begins with a dinner between Sam Altman and Bob Iger last week. What was this dinner about?
Well, it wasn't just Bob Iger. It was a number of other Fortune 500 executives who are already OpenAI customers. And the pitch was basically not really new because OpenAI has been selling to businesses for the last couple of years. I think what's new about what's happening now is that OpenAI recognizes that they have to do something. They have to have an answer to Claude Code because Claude Code is in many ways sort of happening in the enterprise the same way that ChatGPT kind of swept across the landscape 3 years ago. This is a product that is spreading by word of mouth. Companies are trying it. People are talking about it. It's going viral. And so OpenAI is just sort of formalizing, I think, their approach to selling to enterprises. So they do have a new product that we talked about in the story. The details aren't entirely clear what it is, but at a high level, the pitch does appear to be that OpenAI is telling enterprise customers, like, we've got everything you need, so why would you need anyone else? I don't think they're specifically saying, like, Anthropic, we're going to take them out, but I think that is the goal.
So we have OpenAI. They've got a new product. We know that's out there pitching. We don't quite know the details of it, but we know this is part of the enterprise sales push. I want to ask you about the relative sizes of Anthropic's enterprise business and then OpenAI's. I mean, these are two companies at different scales right now, but Anthropic obviously prioritizes enterprise. Is it bigger than OpenAI's, or what do we know about the sizing?
It's not bigger revenue-wise, but the share, Anthropic's share is 80% of the revenue comes from selling to
Okay.
businesses, whereas OpenAI's was recently at 40%. I think the goal, or they're saying that 50%, they'll have 50% by the end of the year. So from the beginning, Anthropic has sort of specifically said that we're going to speak about our AI to businesses in a way that businesses like to hear about AI. So we're just doing one thing. Enterprises love focus. Enterprises don't generally like bells and whistles. And so that has been Anthropic's approach from the beginning, is to talk about security, to talk about trust, to talk about predictability of its AI.
Now, if coding is such an important part of this story, remind me, it's called Codex, is OpenAI's coding tool, right?
Yes.
And how good is that tool compared to Claude Code right now? Is it getting better?
Well, our recent reporting has shown that Codex has made strides in recent months. So certainly, OpenAI is putting a lot of effort into making that product better. In the story, we reported that OpenAI has communicated to consultants who sell to its customers, who work with its customers, that some coming upgrades that OpenAI is working on will uh, put Codex perhaps ahead of Claude Code. And we've yet to see exactly what that means. But the point is that OpenAI is definitely working on this piece of their business, focusing very hard on the Codex product right now.
So the interesting part to me about this is that the technical specifications and the performance of the product is one thing, but really, I think one of the challenges OpenAI has is that the world doesn't really think about it as an enterprise company. I mean, this seems to be a little bit of a branding challenge, even so much as it is a product challenge. Because I mean, I guess we have businesses that buy ChatGPT for their enterprises too, but I mean, I don't really think about it as one of the top enterprise companies in the world.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, they certainly have a lot of penetration in enterprises. They've got big name customers like Disney, for example. They just struck a deal last
Right.
month. I think going back to what I said before, um, enterprise customers might not love the fact that OpenAI is doing all kinds of different things that are not enterprise software, like um, you know, some of the fun stuff that they've announced with video and image generation, which of course have business applications, but have gone viral in a very sort of non-business type of way. This is all sort of tough to really quantify, but like I said before, enterprises like predictability. Enterprises like boring, I think might be the best way to say it. And by that, I mean not doing things not pulling things out every week to show people and just staying focused on a very specific set of products.
So, I mean, in the end here, if enterprises like boring, what are the big questions that you have on your mind as this story moves forward? You've covered a lot of companies in your career trying to move into enterprise. It's a very, much more predictable segment. What are the key things that OpenAI has to be able to do, and what are you watching for?
I think in some ways this moment reminds me of what it was like for the major cloud providers like AWS and Google and Microsoft maybe 10 or 15 years ago when their focus started to move from selling to developers to doing larger contracts with business customers, with enterprise customers. And in the course of that push, AWS, for example, they started hiring enterprise executives from other companies. And you're already seeing that happen at OpenAI. Denise Dresser from Salesforce's Slack unit, for example, is now the chief revenue officer. So I expect to see a lot more of OpenAI hiring seasoned enterprise executives, as well as filling out their ranks with people who've worked at enterprise companies, because that was the playbook that cloud providers followed. On another level, everyone has always been trying to pitch themselves as the only company that you need in the enterprise data center, and it's not always successful. And in fact, enterprises are always a hodgepodge of different products anyway. So I think it might be tough to sell that sort of comprehensive, broad strategy. But at the same time, I think the first battles that we're going to see are in AI generated coding. So yeah, Codex versus Claude Code. I'm sure that that is going to be a big theme this year, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Great. Well, Kevin, I want to thank you for coming on. That is Kevin McLaughlin, our enterprise software reporter here at The Information. Okay. OpenAI is looking to charge a premium for advertisers who want in on its platform. That is according to a new exclusive story from my colleague Ann Gehan, who scooped some inside details about how much the company is planning to charge brands and what that means for its strategy. I want to bring on Ann to talk all about it. Ann, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you here.
Hey, Akash.
So, how much is OpenAI looking to charge advertisers?
According to my reporting, the price that OpenAI has been floating with potential participants in the ad pilot is around $60 per 1,000 views that the ads get. So they're using a kind of per view pricing model. And yeah, the price that they're hoping to get is roughly $60 per CPM, which is kind of the ad jargon for 1,000 views.
Okay, so that's the rate. So for those of us who don't know ad speak, is $60 for 1,000 views, is that good or is that bad?
pretty expensive. It's pretty pricey.
Expensive. Okay.
So that typically compares, a couple ad industry analysts compared it to that's how much you're paying to advertise on like Sunday Night Football on streaming and like really kind of high visibility, very premium ad inventory. So I think that pricing offers kind of a little hint about what advertisers OpenAI might be trying to go after with this initial ads push. And yeah, it kind of offers a little bit more insight just into how they're approaching this initially.
So this is kind of interesting to me because I mean, I get the premiumness of this all, but also, and we'll talk about this. This is like highly experimental, right? I mean, like you're charging a premium for something that you haven't really proven out. So I mean, fine, OpenAI is on top of the world right now, so they can do whatever they want. But uh, I want to ask you about what the advertisers are getting back. You talked about it being in line with, for example, primetime TV slots. They obviously get a lot of data back from who's viewing it and what the results are. Is OpenAI offering that same data?
So, as of right now, OpenAI is planning to give advertisers in the pilot information about impressions, which is ad world speak for views, basically, and then some information about how many clicks the ads drive as well. But it's really kind of high level. OpenAI, in their post announcing the ads pilot, has said that these will all be very aggregated insights. I think they want to be very clear that they're not at the stage yet where they're looking at individual users and their conversations or any actions that they're taking after they see ads. And so I understand why OpenAI wants to take that approach initially, especially because introducing ads into ChatGPT, it seems to be such a thorny problem in terms of how it goes over with users. But I do think that over time, if they keep that very high level, very limited approach, advertisers might not end up thinking it's a really valuable place to advertise over time, just because there are so many other digital ad formats where you can get very, very granular insights about where exactly your ad spending is going, who's seeing your ads, and then what actions they're taking afterwards, which is really kind of the holy grail of what advertisers want to know.
But how much initial interest is there from advertisers based on this premium pricing, from what
Oh,
you're hearing?
the pricing is not a turnoff at all. There are plenty of brands that are dying to
I
advertise
want in. I want
in
in.
ChatGPT. Yes, they all want in. I think that the appeal for advertisers right now, at least, is that ChatGPT just has such a massive audience and so many millions of users. And especially because this is a brand new ad offering. Usually advertisers, they want to be first to new ad channels because the thinking is there usually is a little bit of arbitrage you can get by being one of the first advertisers somewhere. We saw this with this company AppLovin, which helps place ads in mobile apps like Candy Crush. So the thinking is, while there aren't very many ads in a particular place or app, by being one of the first advertisers, then your ads can potentially be more impactful and you can get a little bit more kind of bang for your buck.
And so, last question for you, extending that bang for your buck, arbitrage, being early out of the gate. If they can't measure these things to the degree that they would other advertisements, I mean, success for them is what? Just being first, or is it
For
learning?
advertisers?
Yeah, for advertisers.
Yeah, I think for advertisers, the appeal is getting in on this early and also potentially being able to have influence in whatever OpenAI does next with the ad product. I think a lot of advertisers are hoping that by trying to establish some kind of relationship with OpenAI early, then, as they potentially look towards, more click-based advertising, adding advertising into their commerce features somehow. I think a lot of advertisers are hoping, just because OpenAI has been so hard to reach. On the topic of ads specifically, I think a lot of advertisers are hoping that if they can get in some form of regular contact or have some form of relationship with OpenAI, then they can use that to their advantage down the line.
Great. Well, Ann, I want to thank you for coming on. That is Ann Gehan, our e-commerce reporter here at The Information. Okay. AI video company Synthesia raised a new round of funding. The company today announced it closed a Series E of $200 million at a $4 billion valuation. I want to bring on CEO Victor Riparbelli to talk about where he is going next with his company. Victor, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What are you going to use all this money for?
Look, I think what we've seen over the last couple of years, just that the opportunity in AI video is really, really big. The last 5 years have been all around making it faster and better for people to create video by using AI instead of cameras, actors, studios, and so on and so forth. We think the next chapter of all this is, what does AI video look like that's truly, AI native video truly look like? Which means like looking beyond just using AI to create video as we know it. It means video that's going to be interactive. It's going to be personalized, it's going to be video you can talk to. If you're consuming a training video, for example, rather than sort of just passively consuming 5 minutes of content, you can now consume some content and go into a conversation with the video. It can pretend to be a customer and do role playing, ask you questions, do a whole bunch of other things. So it's a lot of product development. It's also scaling the core business, which obviously means, customer acquisition and hiring more amazing people and all the usuals.
And tell me, how is it that your video generation products, how does it differentiate itself from Google's text to video products? We've had Runway on the show. There's obviously Midjourney in the mix. What's different about you guys?
So I think all the names you're mentioning here, I'd say it's much more about the AI models and actually generating kind of clips. Where I think what we've been very successful with over the last 5 years is to build a true platform of which the AI models is a component, but it goes much further than that, right? So we start helping you write the script of your video, for example. Then we have the avatar technology, of course. We have the video models. You can use Video Free and Sora insights and PC if you want to. We have a full video editor. You can add screen recordings, text animations. It's a collaborative platform. It's a content management system. It's even a publishing platform. We have a video player that's built to work with these AI videos that can deliver the video in many different languages. You can make them interactive. And so I think the reason that Synthesia is winning in the enterprise is because we've really thought about like, how do we make this workflow really, really fast, which is about going from an idea to a final video, of which the AI models are important, but let's say they're 20% of that workflow.
So you're taking on Adobe essentially.
We're definitely taking all kind of more workflow-centric companies. The ones you mentioned earlier on, I'd say is much more like model companies. We also develop our own models, but we put a lot of effort into essentially building this like workflow, which involves the video edits, the collaboration platform, and so on and so forth. In terms of the users, I think looking at a company like Adobe, generally Adobe is more products for experts, so people who are experts in video or image or Photoshop, whatever. What we're seeing with Synthesia is more the PowerPoint user, your sort of average office worker being able to quickly go in and start creating video content instead of creating slides, text documents. But sort of in spirit, yes, it's all about like content creation platform and tools.
How much revenue is the company doing now?
So we announced $100 million in AR in April last year. We're not that public about our revenue for this round, but obviously raising this, I think statistical and growing really, really quickly.
And if you look at the breakdown of the revenue, then what proportion of that is consumers versus enterprises?
It's very high on the enterprises. We made a very conscious decision 5 years ago to build for the world's biggest companies. And so I think what appeals to investors around Synthesia, and I think kind of the multiples we can demand, because it's very, very high quality revenue. We have plus 140% NR, for example. We work with more than 90% of the Fortune 100. But this is not just individuals kind of signing up with a credit card, playing around, trying to make some cool viral content, social media. This really is the world's biggest companies adopting this as a kind of a standardized way of how.
So this is like more than 50% of revenue is coming from enterprises now.
Significantly more than that.
Oh wow! Okay, so it very much is an enterprise video company.
For sure.
Now you guys are also pushing into agents. What is what does agents look like with video production? Help us, imagine this.
Yeah. So as I said before, the last 5 years we've been about like how can we make video production as we know it just better and faster with AI. And I think clearly that's a huge market. There is, we're tackling it from an enterprise central kind of POV. There's other companies doing more consumer. Clearly it's a huge market and we can build a great, really big company based off that. But I think the $100 billion question in this market is what does truly AI native video look like? And I think that means taking into consideration the fact that we now have LLMs, we have intelligence as a utility, right? We have real-time generation of avatars and videos also coming up inside the platform. And so for an end consumer, what this means is that video will look different. It will not just be a broadcast where you create one video and then everybody watches exactly the same video. The video will be personalized to every single person that watches it. It'll be interactive. So, the example I gave earlier would think like a training video, for example, rather than having your sales team just passively consume content describing your new pricing policy, you can now have that as maybe the first part of the video, and then it can go into an agentic experience where the agent pretends to be a customer. And for 15 minutes, you have to overcome objections, explain, the pricing policy to what is, a kind of a simulated customer, which both means that the seller will, understand the content much better. We know that the best way to learn something is a combination of kind of curriculum-based content you consume yourself with a tutor, and also begins to give management and executives a very, very, very interesting data set into how enabled is my workforce. Do they actually understand all the different facets of our sales methodology, of our product areas? And that's one of the things that's really appealing in enterprise right now. Everybody wants to upskill their workforce to be able to work with all these new AI technologies, but it's very, very difficult to understand who's good at what and how can we help improve on whatever they're less good at. And this agent product is a world into that. Eventually, it'll scale to other use cases as well. We're excited about things like having first screening call for recruiters. You could do that with a Synthesia video with an agent in it that can interact with the viewer. Customer support. Like there's a lot of other use cases we'll enable down the line, but we're kind of starting with the training one.
It feels like I'm sort of thinking about all the different ways that video can be used, and it feels like those corporate videos are one of the main use cases because I'm thinking about personalized video as it relates to content creation, and if you think about movies and YouTube videos, I mean the value of it is having, a single piece of art that everyone can talk about seeing the same thing. So I guess what you're talking about is really much more the interactiveness of, being able to use video as a way to scale company operations, right?
That's definitely the market that we're targeting. I think, that said, what will be very exciting is to see what kind of new media formats people come up with these new technologies outside of Synthesia as well, right? I think you're right that the appeal of video as we know it is the fact that you have like one piece of art everyone can discuss. But there's also a lot of people that play computer games, right? Computer games is like within certain boundaries, everybody has a slightly different experience. They play with different people, you choose a different storyline. And I think it's a lot of those mechanics we'll just begin to see seep into video and audio for that matter, right? And that's very exciting. There's a corporate version of it, which is the one that we're kind of going for. And that's all about, we've always said that we're much more about like knowledge sharing type of videos, less like marketing, advertising, storytelling, really creative use cases. And it's just very obvious that video you can interact with is gonna, be so much better almost no matter what use case you're working with in knowledge sharing. Even if it's as simple as you can ask the video a question if there's part of the content that you don't understand.
Now, I want to ask you about your costs here because none of this can be cheap, certainly when it relates back to the compute costs. How are you dealing with that? Because it can't be cheap to run all this in the background.
We actually have great SaaS margins. We're not one of those companies that's running at
like 70%, 75% margins.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
This is an AI video company that does real-time agentic video with 75% gross profit margins.
Yeah, I mean, well, the live product hasn't launched yet, right? They'll have a different cost profile.
Right.
But in general, when you look at Synthesia as a business, it's not just fast growth, it's high quality revenue, and it's really, really great unit economics. And I think that is, there's a lot of different strategies, but I think building a platform and selling a workflow rather than just selling here's an API call to my model just means that you can capture much more of the value, right? So part of this, of course, also because we develop our own models, which means we can fine tune them for specifically what we need. a lot of these very big video models, right? They're amazing and creative because they can do absolutely anything you want them to do. But it also means the models have to be very, very big, right? If you're focusing in on like talking head style videos in our world, for example, it just means that you can get them to much better economics as well.
And so what's holding the company back right now? What's the rate limiting step?
I think hiring is probably, one of the biggest rate limiters. Getting people in seat, getting them to, start selling Synthesia, building Synthesia, I think is really, really, getting great talent to any business, I think is always
Right.
like fun. Like there's a lot of talk in AI about how AI is going to, replace and automate everything. And of course, that's also happening at a really grand scale in Synthesia. But if you look at it, I mean, AI companies are the ones hiring the most and the fastest right now. And I think that great people and great talent will always be the core DNA of winning companies.
Great. Well, Victor, I want to thank you for coming on the show. That is Victor Riparbelli, the CEO of Synthesia, here on TITV. Okay, we had some big news this morning. Nvidia is expanding its partnership with CoreWeave, looking to accelerate its data center build-out with a $2 billion investment. The deal will support CoreWeave's build-out of more than 5 gigawatts of AI factories in 2030. Here with some analysis is the Information's cloud and compute reporter, Anissa Gardizy. Anissa, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Akash.
Great to be in the same office as you. This is great.
Yeah, crazy. I didn't even get to see you in person yet. You pulled the shade down.
I did, yeah. Well, we got to manage the lights. Okay, so look, I want to get to this CoreWeave deal because you have done a lot of reporting about how Nvidia is, it's a customer, it's an investor, it's a supplier, it's all these things. So what did you make of the CoreWeave investment this morning?
Yeah, Nvidia invested $2 billion into CoreWeave common shares. So CoreWeave stock was up about 8% the last time I checked. And what CoreWeave says is that this investment is going to help it build out data centers faster. The number they used was 5 gigawatts of data center capacity by 2030. I think one big takeaway here is that it's going to take a lot more than $2 billion for CoreWeave to do make even a dent in that goal. But I think it's a huge vote of confidence from NVIDIA in CoreWeave, which isn't too surprising, but maybe will help CoreWeave get other partners on board as it looks to expand that quickly.
And what does this tell us about CoreWeave's long-term strategy in terms of it building its own data centers? I mean, this is the neocloud business. I mean, the roots of this was essentially renting some of these chips and then renting capacity out, right?
Totally. So the thing that all of the neoclouds, including CoreWeave, have been thinking about over the past couple months is, do they need to diversify away from NVIDIA hardware in order to differentiate and have a sustainable business that isn't just solely reliant on being an NVIDIA partner? And last week at the World Economic Forum, our founder and CEO, Jessica Lessin, actually asked the CEO of CoreWeave, Mike and Trader, are you guys going to consider other NVIDIA alternatives? And I think his answer was pretty telling of the announcement that we saw this morning, which is that from CoreWeave's perspective, they think that NVIDIA hardware is best in class. That's where they're seeing demand. So for the time being, that's the hardware they're going to stick with. But I think a lot of other companies, and we've reported on this, are considering whether other chips, maybe from AMD or Google, would help them accelerate their business. But I think by and large, these startups primarily rely on NVIDIA. And I think what CoreWeave looks like it is doing is, going deeper with NVIDIA as opposed to considering alternatives, which could come with many, many benefits. That's obviously a great strategy for Jensen.
Great. Anissa, I want to pivot to talking about a piece that you published today. You went to Hawaii for the Davos of the data center sector. The name of the conference you went to, the Pacific Telecommunications Council conference. Why are these people getting together in Hawaii?
Exactly. So every year, tons of people in the infrastructure sector, going from data centers to networking to subsea cables, meet up in Hawaii at this longstanding conference called PTC. And the reason that I go to this conference is that all of the hyperscale cloud providers go to this conference to start talking about deals for the year and, maybe even signing deals. Lots of bankers, lawyers go to this conference. So a lot gets done, and you kind of get a good sense for what the year ahead is going to look like. And so this year, one of the big themes was obviously execution. I think, I heard that from every single person I talked to that, you know, don't expect more big flashy announcements. Like a lot of companies kind of just need to put their heads down and make sure projects are on track and hitting deadlines. So that was definitely the biggest theme for me coming out of the conference.
And then with execution, are people optimistic that they will be able to achieve that execution, or is there nervousness?
Definitely across the industry, I think everyone realizes that not every project is going to get done on time. And, there could be some pretty unfortunate situations where developers are missing timelines, their costs are doubling, and maybe they get kicked off a project, maybe the project stalls. And you know, plenty of people think that their projects are going to be fine, their data centers are going to get built, their customers aren't going to walk away, but they're sort of signaling, that project over there might not get done on time. And so I think that'll be interesting to sort out through this year. People are kind of viewing this as a shakeout. We're going to see which operators are building quality data centers and which operators, are not going to be able to deliver. But I think the overarching sentiment is that if any of these projects, run into a major problem, that could freeze up financing for all projects. So I think everyone has an incentive for things to keep moving forward because one hiccup here or there could actually affect future projects for
And
companies.
and that is how the cascade. I mean, I've sort of been looking for an explanation for how this cascade could tumble. So really, the financing is what could tighten up then down the line.
That's what people are saying for sure, and I think that's right because, someone actually has to give you money to go out and do this. So even with Nvidia investing the $2 billion in CoreWeave, that's great, but they're still gonna have to look at project financing. And
Mm.
so that is the thing that people really don't want to freeze up because then, things just won't happen on time and they'll have to wait.
Now, another part of this that we've talked about on this show is demand being a key indicator of whether or not these data center projects actually achieve ROI in the long run. How much discussion was there about demand on the ground there? Did you get a sense for if it's still accelerating, or is there any risk that it's, starting to plateau even in some cases?
For what I can tell, demand is still soaring. So, I don't even think anyone brought up, worries about demand slowing.
Right.
Actually, there were some
Big green light.
yeah, but there were some companies who came to the conference, looking for small amounts of data center capacity, maybe 30 megawatts or 50 megawatts, and they walked away with nothing. So I think that demand is still super high in the industry. But of course, I'm talking to people who have a invested interest in that always being the case. But I do think that demand, at least for the next 2 years, is pretty booked out.
Now, you talked about CoreWeave and the possibility that they could try to diversify their chip reliance. Was there discussion about all the other chip players and even Google?
Yeah, surprisingly, in Hawaii, tons of people were excited about Google being aggressive on getting its TPUs out into the market. And that was honestly a little bit surprising to me because in years past, the conversation was all about the different model developers, who's working with XAI, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google. But this year, it seemed like the actual hardware inside the data center was what people were getting really excited about. And I think particularly from investors and operators, they're seeing Google in the market doing unusual finance arrangements where they're maybe backstopping a developer's debt or backstopping their lease, and that can make a project very easily financeable. And so I think people are kind of wondering, is Google going to make Nvidia start to do more of these, financial arrangements with data center companies to help with financing? So
Hmm.
definitely lots of excitement and talk around Google and TPUs for sure.
And what about power?
Yeah, I mean, power is still a big concern for everyone. But everyone is sort of on different sides of it. Some people were there saying that behind the meter gas turbines were going to be the solution. So you had every gas turbine company basically looking for cloud providers and AI companies who might not want to wait for the grid and install their own power supply at their data center. But then there were, other startups I talked to who were saying actually the grid is underutilized and we could get more power from the grid if we did things a little bit differently. But I think the whole, ecosystem around operating with utilities, trying to convince communities to put up new gas power plants. There's definitely a lot of complexity and differing thoughts on how to tackle this problem. But by and large, power is, going to be a big constraint. But I think, people are going about the problem in different ways.
And you also wrote about how those communities, I mean, I don't know if there were people, local government regulators at this conference, but that was also a discussion you wrote in your newsletter that the pushback from local communities may actually be, in some cases, an even bigger hurdle than something like power.
Totally. A couple CEOs told me that the community resistance might be a bigger hurdle, and I think that's pretty telling. This has kind of been something that the industry has known about for a long time. What are we doing to make sure that residents know we're good neighbors? And now that we're in this fast-paced AI build out, I think people are kind of realizing we haven't really done a good job of this at all, and now this is the most critical time to be building, and we're kind of confronting this problem as we're trying to build as fast as possible. So everyone is, pretty concerned about it, but I wouldn't say that I heard any solid solutions on how companies are going to go about fixing this. I think top of mind for everyone is just finding markets where the local government and community actually supports what they're doing. But that's pretty hard to do. So everyone's going to be fighting over those same locations.
Great. Well, Anissa, I'm glad that you had a productive trip to Hawaii. It's a good reporting trip I'm sure many of us wish that we had, but thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us everything you learned. That is Anissa Gardizy, our cloud and compute reporter here at The Information. Okay, well, that does it for today's show. A reminder, we are on this stream Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I want to thank you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate your viewership. I'm already excited for our next show tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Monday. Bye-bye for now.